Hello there. Today we are going to be reviewing Amsonia Hubrichtii. But first, let's go over the basic information on this plant. So its growing zones are USDA growing zones 4 to 9. It takes full sun to part shade. Full sun is more than 6 hours of direct sunlight, and part shade is 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. As far as soil goes, it likes moist, well-draining soil, but not overly rich soil, not with an overly rich soil. And it does grow in a mounding habit, which, as you can see here, is a perennial in my garden here in zone 8A, and it has come back reliably every year so far. So those are some basic information on this plant. If you would like to learn more in depth on this plant, you can always Google it and you'll get plenty of information. And speaking of that, I wanted to say that I am not affiliated with any plant companies. The review is based on my experience with the plant, and that I wanted to share that with you so that if you have not ever grown this plant, maybe you can give it a try, or after the review you can say this is not a plant for me. And if you have been growing this plant for a while, hopefully you will have learned one or two new things. Now with gardening, unfortunately or fortunately, there are various factors in how your plant or plants will respond. Your zone, your growing conditions, all that stuff. Now I live in zone 8A in the south with clay soil and regular rainfall, although this year it has been kind of dry, so not typical. So what you see here, how the plants here have grown, may not be the same in your environment. Just keep that in mind. It is a good starting point for you and kind of give you a good perspective. So yours could be bigger, yours could be smaller, yours could be doing a lot better than mine. So yeah, just keep that in mind. All right, let's get started with the review of the Amsonia Hubrichtii. So let's start off with what you are seeing right now. So you can see that there is yellow color to the foliage right now, and this plant does give fall interest. So the plant tag that I received with this plant suggested that it should be pruned in the fall, but if you would like to enjoy the nice fall foliage, then I would wait until it completely turns brown. It produces pale blue blooms, and it's not one of those where it's purple but they call it blue. It's actually a true blue color, but it is on the lighter blue color. So what that means is when you are viewing it from far away, it pretty much looks white. And the blooms are not big at all. They're probably on the small size, and the blooms are star-like in shape. So blue star-like blooms, and you get the fall interest color. And of course in the summer it will give the green foliage. So with that being said, this plant does offer 3 seasons of interest. You get the blooms in the spring. I would say around April, mid-April is when I see mine getting blooms. And then of course, now I don't remember the blooms staying all that long, otherwise I would remember. At the same time, I don't think I pay too much attention to this plant, maybe because the blooms are not that interesting enough to me, or there's just little that I don't pay attention to them, or they're not noticeable. So I would say give the blooms a good week before they fall off the plant. And at some point, which I do not remember, you will get these seed pods. I think sometime in the summer after it finishes blooming, you will get seed pods, and the seed pod pods are pretty interesting. They're long shaped. Let me show you. So they look like these. I think they look kind of cool, almost like bean pods. And there's a spider there. So I do believe that I had more, but they must have fallen off. So it can be a nice decorative feature to use for fall or winter decoration, I think. I do have 3 plants. This plant right here is 3 years old. The other 2 are 1 year old. This one was transplanted in the spring of this year, and these 2 were planted last year in April. All right, let's talk about the size of these plants. Height-wise, I think they are pretty much the same, except this one is, I would say, taller, maybe 4 to 6 inches taller. Width-wise, I think they are pretty much the same, about at least, I would say at least 2 feet in width. But this one is fuller. So with 3 years of growth, yours could look like this. Yours could be a little bit smaller. Yours could be bigger. So it just depends on, you know, where you live, your zones, your soil condition, and all that. So, and it looks like this one, the stems are sturdier than the other 2. Of course, more than this one, there's more flopping going on. So they do get affected when we have, say, a good amount of rain and also with wind. And especially when they are a lot younger, of course, the stems are going to be a lot more susceptible to wind and rain. So you can see that as they mature, they will get stronger. The stems will get stronger. So technically these 2 should be the same. However, this one is more on the floppy side. So when I read, it did mention that if you have overly rich soil, you can get more flopping. In this case, they're pretty much in the same general area, so I don't think that this one is getting richer soil than this. So this flopping could be due to wind and rain, and also it could be me moving here and damaging the stems at some point. I don't know if I did that for sure, but that's a possibility because this one, same general location, but not as floppy as this one. So that is something for you to know, that there could be more flopping going on when you have overly rich soil and when you have strong winds and lots of rain. We'll just have to see going forward what happens. Now, as you can see, these are see-through plants. So wherever you decide to put them, make sure that they will have an impact by themselves or together with the other plants. Because where I have placed them, I don't think it's a good location, at least for right now, because there's a lot of empty spaces here. I have a plant here that will get in a good size later, so that will help with the situation that I have right now. So right now there's not a lot of plants in close proximity to the Amsonia Hubrichtii. Keep that in mind. And speaking of wind, you can see that this plant does sway with the wind, so it gives you that kind of feature, that kind of interest as well. If you're looking for plants that are like grass-like, that sway in the wind. And speaking of swaying and all that, you can see how beautiful the foliage is. It looks different from a lot of regular plants, based on my opinion, and they are arranged like alternating leaves, and they kind of remind me of bamboo like foliage. I could be wrong. So if you have this plant, how would you describe the foliage? So I think if you had another plant here with a different leaf structure, it would stand out really well and would complement both plants would complement each other really well. Like with this one, I don't know if you can see it on camera there. All right, so this right here is a pomegranate tree or pomegranate plant, and to me they don't complement each other really well, because I don't know, although the leaves of the pomegranate is broader, it's still, to me, they kind of look similar. They both have nice texture to them, but I think if you had a softer foliage plant, I think that would work better with this Amsonia Hubrichtii and a plant that has bigger leaves. But at the same time, these don't look bad at all. Of course, the pomegranate is prickly, and you can see both of them have fall interest right now, pretty much the same color, and you can see both of them are see-through. So this is not a plant that would go together. The reason I put this pomegranate here was because I needed a spot to put it at, and I thought it would do well because it's going to get some size, and I figure I could always move either it or the Amsonia Hubrichtii later. So it wasn't something that I was thinking about long term. But for you, please think about that. But if you don't care about any of that, then you can just put the plant anywhere that you want, somewhere that is moist, with not a lot of rich soil. But I will say that in the information that I read, it can adapt to different soil condition. Just make sure that you take care of it in the beginning, make sure that it's established first, and then after that it should be good to go. If you look at it from that perspective, it does not look bad at all with the other plants in the background here. Again, I don't have any big leaf soft foliage plants, but I do have green here, and I think they contrast one another really well. So I think once they get some size, and I'll have other plants around, that I think they'll stand out really well, and hopefully I will be able to pick some plants that will complement them as well. And that is good for me to know too, if they were to be here permanently, I will have to make sure to give myself a mental note to look for plants that will complement them really well. And sometimes I find myself gravitating towards certain types of foliage plants. I have to make a mental note a lot of times when I buy plants. Otherwise, I come back with the same types of foliage feature. So now let me share with you why I wanted to have this plant in the first place. If you did not know, I love blue plants. It could be a plant that is blue in foliage, or a plant that produces blue flowers. And I do not mean the purplish color blooms and people calling them blue. I mean the true blue blooms. So when I found out that this plant produces blue flowers, it was such an excitement for me to know that, and of course I wanted it. I didn't care like anything else about the plant. I just wanted the plant because of the blue blooms. I bought this one initially, and then 2 years later I decided to buy 2 more. I only came to appreciate the other features of this plant later on. I have come to appreciate the foliage structure a lot better actually than the blooms, because as mentioned, the blooms are a faded, kind of very, very light blue color that you can't even tell that the blooms are blue from afar. They pretty much look white. And depending on, you know, like the lighting and maybe their age, more likely you don't really notice a blue until you get close to the blooms. So it turned out really good that I have come to love and appreciate the other features about this plant, the airiness of it, and it is quite different than all the other plants that I have in my garden here. I don't have anything that I know of, I could be wrong, that resembles this type of plant. The foliage structure, that is. The foliage structure, the way that they are arranged, and I actually come to love the green color foliage during the summer, and of course now in the fall. Now, I didn't mention anything about pests. The information about this plant stated that it's pretty much resistant to pests, but you know, as you and I know, there's got to be some pests that we're not aware of. I think when I was looking at it earlier, and I may have caught it on video, there was a bug in here. And as far as diseases go also, I don't think that I noticed anything, but I'm a low maintenance gardener, which means I don't pay close, I should be paying closer attention to the plants, unless I notice something kind of like off about the plant. I will take a look at it. Otherwise, I just leave them be. Just know that I have not noticed any disease or any pest issues, but I'm pretty sure every plant has something. It's just something I haven't noticed that is detrimental to this plant, or that is not making the plant look healthy at all. So I have not noticed any of that to worry about so far. I also love the fact that it has a mounding habit. I love plants that do have mounding habits instead of spreading like crazy, like by rhizomes. All right, so after learning about the basic information about this plant, the different features of this plant, different features and characteristics, learning about my experience and why I was drawn to it in the first place, and what I came to appreciate about it later on. What do you think about this plant? Is this a plant that you would like to add to your garden? Or is this a plant that you're saying to yourself, nope, I'm not going to grow it? Or maybe you're too hot or you're too cold to grow this plant. And if that's the case, I'm so sorry about that. But for the rest of us, hopefully you will have gotten some good information about this plant, and you will have enough information to decide for yourself. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. And until the next video, I hope you take care. Bye for now.